Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, I'm going to give all glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakar Kodesh. Double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone who teach and grow well, and peace and salutations select out there feeding the sheep of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai with sincerity and truth. I'm the brother Barak, and Lord willing, this will be an edifying lesson. And I'm going to be doing this lesson about basically the Lord sets up certain prophets, right? He sets up certain men to teach His word, right? And as you can see, throughout the scriptures, right? The Lord He had certain men as His mouthpieces, right? He uses men, right? And this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15 and 19. It says, "Therefore, thus said the Lord, if thou return, then will I bring thee again, and thou shalt stand before me. And if thou take forth the precious from the vial, thou shalt be as my mouth. Let them return unto thee, but return not unto them." Right. Let's go into let's get Jeremiah 15:19. Let's duplicate this because basically, right. Um, this is in response to somebody that a statement that somebody made a while ago, and they basically said that they don't follow what men teach; they only follow what the Lord teaches. But you have to understand that the Lord, He has a proper order to things. You know, there's the Lord set up certain men, right? It's your job to discern who those men, who the sincere men that the Lord set up are, right? So the Lord, he says up certain people as His mouthpiece, right? That's why it says you shall be as my mouth. Or we are basically mouthpieces of the Lord. And those are the prophets, right? We're supposed to. There are certain men the Lord set up who are sincere, and certain men who are not sincere, right? Through and the Lord, he gave us pastors according to His heart, right? So let's bring this out. So this book of Jeremiah, chapter 3 and 15, it says, "And I will give you pastors according to my heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding." Right? The Lord, He set up certain men, right? So basically, this people were saying, like, I'm not, I'm not gonna follow man. I'm just gonna read the Bible, or I'm just gonna figure things out on my own, right? And you, you can do that, but how are you gonna get that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? With the blueprints, man. With the blueprints, because ultimately you need the proper breakdowns of the scriptures, right? You need to have to understand that there's people who studied way longer, right? And the Lord set up, right? And know the breakdowns, and you have to learn those breakdowns, right? The scriptures say, let me bring this let's see, let me bring this. Yeah, so let's bring this out, actually. You know, This is book of Galatians chapter 6 and verse 6. It says, "Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teaches in all good things." Right? Basically what teach what was taught, right? You know, basically Salakia. Basically what, you, you get the proper breakdowns from somebody, and then you can teach those breakdowns, right? And and that's the problem. People read the Bible on their own, and then they don't have it. They go off of their own understanding, right? There's a lot of people that believe they don't need anybody. They can just figure things out by themselves, and that's a demon. That's a demon. And that's pride. Okay, that's prideful. Whether you take the rebuke or not, right? That is prideful, man. You can't just be this person that just you think you're gonna just be able to study by yourself and figure things out. You know, it's like basically, how do I say, like, imagine you had, five people on an island, and you put a piano on the island, right? you know, yeah, they can figure out how to play the piano, but it might take them years to figure out what somebody could learn in 2 months, right? If they were just taught the proper, how to play properly, right? It's the same thing, man. And the Lord, he reveals his secrets unto the prophets. So if he sees that you're humble and you're willing to understand, right, and take heed, he's gonna basically give you that spirit to receive and allow you to understand more, right? So as you can see, the Lord, he set up certain pastors according to his heart, and and yes, you don't want to just follow anybody, right? Because what the scriptures talk about this, right? In the book of Jude 1 and 4, it says, "For there are certain men crept in unawares who were before of old ordained to this condemnation. Ungodly men turn the grace of Yahweh Shai into lasciviousness, and denying the only Lord power Yahweh Shai." Right? Let's go into this word for lasciviousness. Actually, yeah. So lasciviousness, what does this mean? Right? It's lasciviousness refers to unrestrained sexual desire, lewdness, or shameless behavior that excites lust, right? It describes an state of acting in an indecent, immoral, or overtly sensual manner, often characterized by wanton behavior, etc., etc. So, and you're seeing this with a lot of these different groups where they're literally hell out of here, where um, they're basically, they're using their, you know, positions, right? You have certain camps like IUIC, GOCC, right? Information's coming out on these people, that there's a lot of adultery going on, a lot of wickedness, people bringing their women to congregations, right? You're a wicked ass piece of shit, and ultimately these people are they're using the scripture, but their intention is just to get women. You know what I'm saying? Their intention is really to get women, and you know, you know, and and basically what, you see this a lot going on. People are, and I've seen this with certain individuals. They literally only teach when like a woman will be present, and they basically try to one up each other and say it just you see these people, man. You see they're really not sincere, right? And then afterwards, once they get what they want, they just disappear, right? They disappear, and ultimately these are wicked ass people, right? You have a lot of fake ass fucking congregations out there, congregations, right? And they're wicked, right? And through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Shai, right, we were able to discern that there's certain sincere men, right? We have the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone, and the rest of the brothers on down. You don't see these brothers, right? You don't see these brothers asking for money. You don't see these brothers having their women at their camps, right? You know, never. Never, bro. All that stuff is supposed to be keep separate from the ministry, right? The woman is supposed to be in silence, you know. But back to the point, right? The Lord, He set up certain prophets, and you have to basically discern who's sincere, right? And I have let's see, yeah. So let's bring this out. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 15. It says, "Beware of false prophets which come into you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles?" Right? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Right? A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruits. Salakia. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Right? Ultimately, a lot of these false prophets, they're gonna end up being missile food. Right? They're gonna end up getting put into that nuclear destruction. Right? That's coming. right? They're gonna be a part of that. You're gonna have a missile with their fucking name written written all over it, right? You have certain men saying that the mark of the beast is not the microchip, right? You have certain men saying, you can have sex on the Sabbath, you know, that you can basically do sodomy, right? You completely bugged out, right? But you that doesn't there's many false prophets out there, right? That doesn't mean that all camps are are bad, right? All Israelite camps, because one person in particular, he doesn't want to have anything. He basically wants nothing to do with camps because he saw one bad camp, right? And that's the thing. You know the Lord sets up certain sincere individuals, and and then there's certain false individuals that what are on the left hand side, where Esau is basically controlling these different groups, right? Basically basically like agent organizations, and they have they're set up by 501c3s. Basically have something called 501c3s where they basically benefit off of their ministry, right? They're making money off of their ministry, right? And you're even seeing this with like camps like GOCC, right? You're hearing the stories about basically men in there were basically having affairs with other you know you know men's wives, right? Committing adultery. I mean, just fucking wickedness, man. The Lord is not dealing with these other groups, bro. You know what I'm saying? And you know, but but it's up to you to basically have the discernment, right? And to figure out who's sincere, right? The Lord set certain individuals up, right? There's nothing particularly wrong, right, with learning from uh, another man, right? As long as it's sincere, right? As long as they're on the correct doctrine, right? As long as they're a sincere man of the Lord, they're teaching the proper names, like the names Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. They're teaching the proper doctrine, right? You can learn from these men, right? This book of 1 Corinthians 11:3. It says, "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Yahweh Shai, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Yahweh Shai is Yahweh." Right? There's a proper order to things. You know what I'm saying? It's not you know you know you know it's not like you know the man is supposed to be teaching his wife, right? It's not supposed to be a woman going to a council with all these different people, right? Just bugged out, right? And the Lord, he teaches his men, right? That's where the women are going to get this knowledge from the man, right? The Lord will teach the men, and then the men will teach their women, right? So that's how you get these breakdowns, these scriptures, right? The breakdowns, and study to show thyself approved, right? If you have to get these breakdowns. You know what I'm saying? Because there's too many false prophets out there. You don't know what's you know you don't know uh what's you could just be going off your own understanding, and then the very end, you at the last minute, all of a sudden when that chip comes out, you're trying to see who's saying, well, what is this chip? Is it the mark of the beast? What if it isn't, right? But you didn't have the oil in your lamps, right? So and then that person goes and takes the chip, right? Which once again, the mark of the beast is that RFID microchip that's going to be embedded into the skin, right? But you have certain people like these other people like Truth Unedited, certain these YouTubers, right? They'll make a 45-minute long video saying, is the mark of the beast this, or is it that? Is it this, or I mean, just get to the fucking point. Like, honestly, it's not that hard to get to the fucking point. Ultimately, these people, they also like to do these long podcasts, right? Long videos, just to basically because that will give them ad revenue. That will literally if you have a video over 10 minutes on YouTube, last time I checked, I believe it's like 10 minutes or 11 minutes, you get the ad put like more advertisements. So these people have hour-long videos basically, right? you know. But ultimately, they're just doing this for filthy lucre's sake, right? And 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 like I said before, you have to be able to discern, who's sincere, right? But it is not a bad thing to you know, follow the teachings of what other men have taught. The Lord, He literally sets up certain prophets, right? Like I said earlier, right? The Lord, He will give us pastors according to His heart, right? Which through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yosai, we're the Lord is He's revealing His prophets, right? You know, and let's bring this out. Proverbs 24 and 21. It says, "My son, fear thou the Lord and the king, and meddle not with them that are given to change." Right? You see a lot of these people switching up on their doctrine beliefs, right? They're saying that the heathens can't make it, and then all of a sudden they're saying the heathens can make it. Which the heathens there's no salvation for these heathens, bro. I'm just gonna say how it is. There's no salvations for these Gentiles and heathens. The only so-called Gentiles that can make it are the actual Israelites, right? That th that were actually Israelites to begin with, but they started becoming like Gentiles because of because what they basically took on the customs of the Gentiles, right? But this truth is for the Israelites, and it's always has been, right? The Lord has it. The whole Bible, right? If you go throughout the whole Bible, you'll see that it is written towards the Israelites. Okay, but you have certain groups like TGC Ministries, all these different groups, TOTW Ministries. They're saying that the heathenists and Gentiles are gonna make it. They're gonna get saved by boats, right? You just you have to be some fucking idiot to believe. Yeah, let me get this straight. Like they basically Esau put us onto slave ships, right? And and one of the slave ships was called Jesus Christ. And you're saying that we're gonna leave Babylon with slave ships, um, with boats, right? And while nuclear missiles are getting blown up everywhere, how the fuck does that make sense? Right? So that's why it's important to follow you know certain men and get your proper doctrine from the correct men, right? The men that the Lord set up, right? You have to be aware of these false prophets, false teachings, right? So let me bring this out to Matthew chapter 13, Matthew chapter 7 and 13. It says, "Enter ye in the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few that be that find it." Right? Very few people are going to find this truth, right? But you see, many people, listening to TD Jakes, right? What's that one guy, Kenneth Copeland? Uh, just all these crazy ass Edomite pastors, right? 2/3, right? Because ultimately these pastors they're teaching, the prosperity doctrine, right? The prosperity, and in Babylon, which we know that, there's no prosperity coming for Babylon. It's only destruction, right? The scriptures say, the scriptures speak about this, all throughout the Old Testament, and the New Testament. You see these prophecies speaking about the destruction of Babylon, right? Which modern day Babylon is America. But these other pastors, they're teaching you otherwise. They're teaching you that you're gonna make money, and you're gonna have a family, and you're gonna have a great life. And ultimately, that's completely bugged out as well, right? But like I said before, that's why you have to. It is important to get your information from the correct men, right? The correct prophets, or otherwise you're gonna basically be bugged out. You're gonna be going on your own understanding, right? That's not what you want, right? Let's bring this up. Uh, yeah, let's bring this up. Proverbs 26. That's actually yeah. Let's what I'll do is put it in here. Yeah, so this is Proverbs chapter 26 and verse 16. It says, "The sluggard is wiser in his own conceit than seven men that can render a reason." Let's bring up the New Living Translation. Lazy people consider themselves smarter than seven wise counselors, right? So these people, right, they don't want to take counsel. They believe they don't need to follow men who have learned these scriptures, right? That have the understanding that the Lord gave understanding to. They believe that they're smarter when it clearly says, we are allowed to take counsel, right? This right here is just showing you we are allowed to take counsel from men of the Lord, right? And certain men that the Lord set up, right? So I wanted to make this short, right? Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm gonna give all glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and peace and salutations to the elect that they are feeding sheep of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai with sincerity, truth, and charity. Shalom.